Boxing truth here. I felt like doing a top 10 pound for pound list. So, a lot of pound for pound talk, so I figured I make a list. I'm going by Ring Magazine criteria, go by opposition, the quality of the performance, how they look in their last fight, in victory or defeat. So, I take that all into account. Also, ability, but that's not the primary criteria in terms of talent and skill set. That's pretty much the last of my criteria. The focus point is quality of opposition, the type of performance they've had lately in victory or defeat. So here's my top 10 pound for pound list. It's my list, so anybody that gets butthurt, it's just my opinion, so kind of fuck down. Now, for number one, of course, he's a true pound for pound king. It's Manny Pacquiao. To me, there's no debate who's the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. Manny Pacquiao is coming off a pretty good 2016. He pretty much beat two top 10 welterweights, beat two champions in the year of 2016, and he did it handily. He did it very impressive, dominated these guys. These guys only have two losses between them, and Jesse Vargas and Timothy Bradley. And Pacquiao dispatched them pretty easily. Schooled them, embarrassed them, gave them boxing lessons, and took their belts in the process. Pacquiao won the WBO belt twice on two separate occasions in 2016 against two different champions, beat two top 10 welterweights. No other welterweight has done that. Manny Pacquiao deserves strong consideration as well for Fighter of the Year based on the level of opposition, defeating the type of guys, the opponents that he defeated in that type of fashion. Didn't knock them out, but thoroughly dominated them and was the clear winner in both of these fights. And had pretty impressive performances, especially defensively against these guys. So Manny Pacquiao is still the king on Boxing Truth's pound for pound list. Even at 37 years of age, it's going to take a special fighter to beat Manny Pacquiao. Maybe Lomachenko might be that special fighter, since there's talks of them matching them two together, perhaps in the second half of 2017. But despite even being almost 38 years old, it's going to take someone special to topple Manny Pacquiao from his throne. And number two, I got my Nicaraguan brother, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, undefeated. Bunch of knockouts, bunch of devastating performances. 4 world titles in 4 different weight classes. He's had a miss or two in some of the weight classes. Hasn't unified, but he's coming off another solid performance. Was tested, got banged up a little bit, had a couple of hard fights, but against quality opposition. But he handily beat these guys, even though there were tough fights in Arroyo and also, what's his name? Can't remember his name. Cuadras. Defeated Cuadras, who was considered among the 2 best 115-pounders, for Chocolatito to just keep moving up in weight classes, jumping up in weights, and just dogging these guys out, walking them down and beating them up. He's one of the most exciting fighters, offensive fighters to watch in the game. He's not a defensive wizard. His offense is his strength. But he has a lot of skills. He has a lot of firepower. He throws every punch in the book. He throws a lot of combinations. And he's a premium fighter despite his size. The guy is definitely must-see. He's a must-watch in terms of his ability, his talents, and the action he brings to the ring. I'm always going to be interested in a Chocolatito fight, especially when he's fighting the top-level opponents. Him and Inoue is a fight that has to happen for some time in 2017. Also, the Cuadras rematch is doable. Also, a rematch with El Gallo. That's another fight that needs to be made as well. So Chocolatito has rivals. He's got plenty of opponents to work with. So there's plenty of fights out there for Roma and much more recognition and he's still considered #1 pound for pound according to Ring Magazine. So he's definitely at least #1 or #2, depending on who you like more, either Manny Pacquiao or Roman Gonzalez. But those are my top 2 on the pound for pound list. And #3, I got the Crusher, Sergey Kovalev. Got robbed of a well-earned victory against Andre Ward on November 19th. Had his belts lifted for the time being, as Andre Ward is going to keep him warm until a possible rematch next year if Ward continues to be bullshitting or trying to duck the fight, demanding certain terms to be his way. Ward's going to be difficult in negotiations, but at the end of the day, it's the biggest fight out there for both guys. Kovalev needs the rematch, deserves the rematch, was the rightful winner in the first fight. He's definitely among the top 3 best fighters in the world in terms of his latest performances. He's been destroying guys, dominating guys, and he thoroughly beat Andre Ward unofficially. And he's faced difficult styles. He's defeated 2 guys that have very difficult styles, and Bernard Hopkins and Andre Ward, one unofficially and one officially. We all know Kovalev's the best light heavyweight in the world, and he's among the best top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. Guy's a killer. Tremendous punching power. He's got speed, laser-like punches. Just a difficult, very difficult fight for anybody. When you step up in the ring against Kovalev, guy can take your head off with a jab, can knock you out with jabs to the body, and very difficult to get away from his range and offset his range, nullify his range and his jab. Kovalev's going to be very difficult to beat, and I favor Kovalev heavily if the rematch materializes with Andre Ward. And #4, I got Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Golovkin's body of work and his performances pretty much validates his positioning as among the top 4 or 5 best fighters in the world. He has a lot of defenses, on the verge of breaking Bernard Hopkins' record. He's a triple unified champion. He's unified the titles, and he's done it in devastating fashion. I don't know how many 22 straight knockouts, 21, 23. He's been destroying guys. He's been unable, unfortunately, to get that marquee name, and that's what's holding Golovkin back of being among the top 3 or at least the best fighter in the world. That's what's holding him back of getting the position of having a strong claim to the throne of the pound for pound. He just doesn't have that marquee name. He's not because of not trying. A lot of guys just don't want to fight him, especially in the middleweight division. They call him out for publicity, but not much else. Want cash out paydays to fight this guy. Golovkin is the real deal, and hopefully he'll get a chance to prove sometime next year that he's the best. He is the best middleweight in the world, but he needs more names on his resume, more recognition, and he needs the Canelo fight in order to really even lift his star even further to superstar level and become perhaps a more successful pay-per-view fighter. So Golovkin, he's still rising in the ranks, but he needs the names, the bigger fights, fighting the Dominic Wades and those type of guys are just not going to do it. They're not going to have him climb up the ladder. So Golovkin just needs that big fight for him to really have a strong claim to the pound-for-pound throne. At #5, I got Lomachenko. I'm doing it based off his credentials. Only less than 10 fights. He's already won 2 world titles. He's got a pretty solid resume. He's fought some names. He's dispatched top fighters in an impressive fashion. He's also in strong consideration for Fighter of the Year. Picked up a strap, destroyed Roman Martinez, and absolutely embarrassed and made Nicholas Walters say no mas. Lomachenko is really something special. And at 28 years old, he's only going to get better. This guy is always trying to improve his craft, always trying to get better, and it's scary how we probably have yet to see the best of Vasiliy Lomachenko. And Lomachenko, some people rate him already number one based off his skill set and talent, but I'm going by the Ring Magazine criteria, quality of opposition. But his performances are up there, especially this year. He's really impressed, opened a lot of eyeballs, and his following is beginning to grow, and it's only going to continue to grow as he continues to fight. Hopefully, Lomachenko, Top Rank, and Negus Klimas, his manager, will be able to give Lomachenko a little more exposure, have him fight on HBO at least 3 times, maybe even 4 times. Because the more this guy's in the ring, the more of a following this guy's going to get. And as Bomb Arab says, he believes he's the best fighter in the world, doesn't see anybody beating him. Especially now that Lomachenko's got some experience under his belt, has the tough test Salido under his belt. That fight only made him a better fighter. And he's in position, he's in the running for a Manny Pacquiao fight. But it'll depend on the weight. And if Manny Pacquiao decides to go to 135 to fight Lomachenko, that's definitely a passing of the torch fight. It's just too reminiscent of what De La Hoya did for Pacquiao, him coming down in weight to fight him, to meet him in the middle. The same applies here for Manny to fight Lomachenko. He's going to have to meet him down the middle, and if he goes to 135, it just looks like Lomachenko is being passed the torch in that scenario. And Loma's the type of fighter, the special type of fighter that's going to take to beat a Manny Pacquiao, even at his advanced age at 37 years old, going on 38 next month. So Lomachenko is, in terms of ability, skill set, could be the best fighter in the world, but in terms of resume, he still has yet to prove it, but I consider him the top 5 best fighters in the world, Vasiliy Lomachenko. At number 6, I'm gonna get some heat for this, but I think he's one of the best fighters in the world, and that's Canelo Alvarez. Canelo, he's improving, he's getting better. He's not fought the best opposition of late. 2 showcase fights, but he looked good in both fights. He knocked both guys out. Looked pretty impressive against Liam Smith, who was a belt holder at 54, was undefeated, never been treated like that, and Canelo dispatched him pretty easily, handled him, outboxed him, and ultimately knocked him out. It was a good performance from Canelo this year. He looked good. He looked good in both of his showcase fights. He's been fighting quality opposition the past 3 years. Ever since he had a lot of development fights with Golden Boy earlier on in his career. But since 2013, he's really stepped up. He's fought very difficult styles. Trout's not an easy style to deal with. Mayweather, Lara. He's had some devastating performances, some knockout wins. But he gets a lot of flack for not fighting Triple G. Even though he was the mandatory to his belt at one time, he vacated the belt. He also has the win over Miguel Cotto, a very clear, decisive win in my opinion. And Canelo, this could be his year where he perhaps even continues to climb in the rankings, depending on the opposition that he fights. Hopefully, he fights a true middleweight for some time in 2017, perhaps even his next fight. Maybe even fights Billy Joe Saunders, maybe even picks up a strap. Then eventually, the fight with Triple G for all the marbles. And if that fight was to take place in September 2017, I consider Canelo to be the biggest threat to Golovkin's throne in the middleweight division. It's definitely not a foregone conclusion for Golovkin. If Canelo could showcase himself in the middleweight division, defeat a top opponent in the middleweight division in impressive fashion, it will only further create intrigue for a potential fight for Canelo and Triple G for all the marbles at 160 pounds. To me, Canelo is one of the best fighters in the world. He's continually improving. He's not one-dimensional. He's got one of the best combination punches in the game. He's durable. His gas tank is lacking, but maybe his stamina can improve if he was to move up in weight and become a full-fledged middleweight instead of fighting at Canelo weight. So hopefully Canelo makes the move to full-fledged middleweight and then takes on Golovkin for all the marbles at 160 pounds. So Canelo at number 6. At number 7, I got Andre Ward. He's coming off a gift decision, but it's official. He got the win. He's the current triple unified light heavyweight champion. He didn't have a good performance against Kovalev, coming off two 2-0 fights. Overall, his body of work, he's a 2-division champion. He's fought the opposition in the Super 6, but it's been lacking as of late. But overall, he's accomplished more than the other 3 names that I have on my list. That's 8, 9, and 10. So I have Ward at number 7. But Ward, the only positive thing about his performance with Kovalev, he was the most competitive against Kovalev out of anybody Kovalev's fought ever since Kovalev's HBO run began back in 2013. I mean, Kovalev's been destroying everybody, or people can't even win a round off him or even compete against him. Chilemba only won, from what I saw, maybe 2 rounds. And Andre Ward, the most you can give him, and that's being generous, was 5 rounds against Kovalev. But in reality, he only won around 3 or 4 rounds against Kovalev in their fight. But he was the most competitive out of everybody that's fought Kovalev since Kovalev's HBO run began back in 2013. So that's the only positive thing about Ward's performance. Other than that, he thoroughly got beat, got dropped, got beat up a little bit, and he knows it. But he got the official win. He's got the hardware, and hopefully he gives Kovalev the rematch that he deserves. But Ward's going to be a little diva. He's going to make negotiations difficult. And he's going to perhaps try to get every advantage possible for the rematch because he knows he got handed a gift the first time. So Andre Ward is number 7. At number 8, I got Terence Crawford. At number 8, I got him very low because he hasn't really done much in terms of the pound for pound sense. He hasn't beaten the quality of opposition. I mean, I laugh my ass off when I see Crawford ahead of Manny Pacquiao or as high as number 5 on some lists. It's laughable to me because what do you base that off of? Knocking out lightweights, cherry-picking lightweights, knocking out faded guys, showcase fights, 2 showcase fights this year in John Molina Jr. and now in Hank Lundy. He avoided a fight with Victor Postal. Wasn't a great performance. You don't get kudos for not engaging in fights. You got to perform impressively if you want to get a high ranking on Boxing Truth's pound for pound list. And Crawford is at number 8. He's the unified 140 champion. He's definitely one of the most difficult fighters to beat in the world, but his body of work is lacking. Too many lightweights and not the virtuoso performance people wanted in his unification fight against Victor Postal. That fight was a lot closer than people realize, but a lot of people are influenced by commentating and punch stats as to why people are winning fights. But Crawford's there at number 8. Hopefully he does more impressive things in his career and for him to get higher in the rankings. He's going to get privilege anyways. He's always going to be super hyped. He has been for quite some time. He was already on the pound-for-pound list despite not doing much besides winning vacant titles and knocking out lightweights. So Crawford's always going to get the privilege from the U.S. media. But he still has a lot more to prove from what I'm sitting. At number 9, I got Inoue, the Japanese kid at 115 pounds, the WO champion at 115. He's definitely one of the best fighters in the world. He's explosive, he's fast, he's powerful for his size, and he's going to be Roman Gonzalez's toughest fight. He's got what, less than 11 fights, 12 fights? He doesn't have many fights. He's got less than 15 fights, I know that for sure. And he's already won 2 world titles. He beat the long reigning champion in Alvarez at 115, destroyed him. The performance was impressive. He's had some injuries with his hand, so he's had some issues, but he's continued to win. He's coming off a knockout performance. I believe he's fighting at the end of the year, and hopefully him and Roman Gonzalez could hook up for a unification at 115 pounds. That's the fight to be made. At super flyweight, it's really a 50-50 fight. Inoue could knock out Gonzalez with a body shot, because Gonzalez that's one of his weaknesses there. He can get hurt to the body. Inoue's one of the best body punchers. Got one of the best left hooks to the body. But it's a great fight, and hopefully it happens sometime next year. The money is not right now. Inoue needs more exposure in the United States, and hopefully HBO would invest a little bit in Inoue in order for Gonzalez to get the type of purse he feels he deserves for this type of fight. If these two are going to fight, then the networks is going to have to show Gonzalez the money. Otherwise, he's going to offer other fights that are more lucrative, like the Quadras rematch, which is why that fight's going to happen and not this fight. And number 10, I got Oleksandr Usyk, the Ukrainian cruiserweight. There's life in the cruiserweight division. There's a lot of champions. There's a lot of names. Usyk, I feel, is the most talented, the most gifted, and perhaps the best fighter in the cruiserweight division. He gets pound for pound consideration based on his ability, his skill set. Some people compare him to a Lomachenko. He fights a little bit like Lomachenko. I've called him a cruiserweight version of a Lomachenko. Usyk has a lot of ability, very fluid, very good boxer, powerful, strong, and he's being pushed very fast, not being babied at all. And his performance against Golovkin was very impressive. To just go on the road, go all the way to Poland, and to relieve Golovkin of his WBO strap in the cruiserweight division. And the way Usyk did it, he did it in dominant fashion. Was a clear definitive win. Was a very impressive performance. And Usyk could definitely become a star in the sport. He's got the look, he's got the style, he's entertaining to watch. And HBO is showing interest as they're looking to invest in the cruiserweight division, and they're looking to showcase Usyk on their airways. So if Usyk continues to have those type of performances, his star is only going to rise. And I see him as the best cruiserweight in the world. He defeated Golovkin with ease, and he was coming off momentum. Golovkin, he defeated the long-reigning champion in Marco Huck. And Usyk, he's only 11 fights. And now he's already going to be featured on HBO in his next fight. And hopefully he can get some unification bouts. We'd love to see him and Lebedev in a unification. Belyu's busy, but there's definitely some action in the cruiserweight division. The Gassiev-Lebedev winner. And there's definitely some fights to be made. And I could envision Usyk eventually moving up to heavyweight, perhaps campaigning for a heavyweight strap sometime in the future. Usyk is definitely one of the best fighters in the world in my eyes. So, of course, people are going to probably wonder what the hell is Rigondeaux, but I just can't rate Rigondeaux for a couple of reasons. One, he's done jack shit in the past couple of years. He's fought 2 bums in the past 2 years of his career, in 2014 and in 2015 and this year, in the past year really. He had 2 showcase fights, didn't look good in either fight. Was dreadful to watch in his fight against Francisco. And he looked pretty dull in this fight against what's his name, Jazza Dickens, until he broke his jaw. So if you want to be on Boxing Truth pound for pound lists, you can't be fighting bums. You can't be fighting once a year, and you can't be not looking terrible in showcase fights like he did against Drion Francisco. So Rigondeaux, man, you need to get active. I understand the networks don't like you. The networks won't show you. So if you don't have any network money backing you, it's going to be hard for you to get fights. So it's another wasted year for Rigondeaux. Only one fight this year. He fought some bum in the UK. Broke his jaw and hasn't done shit ever since. So why should people give Rigondeaux recognition when he doesn't do anything, doesn't fight the proper opponents, and he doesn't look impressive and when he does fight, the once a year that he does fight. So if Rigondeaux wants to be on Boxing Truth lists, he needs to get active. You need to be active. You can't be fighting hand-picked opponents, and you gotta look impressive if you want to be on Boxing Truth lists, and that's why Rigondeaux is not on my list. So that's my list. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Your disagreements. Who would you put in place? Who would you switch? Who you think's number one? Who you think's the pound for pound king? To me, Manny Pacquiao is still the king until somebody throws him, or if he retires, or until somebody beats him. Because unless Pacquiao is still active, he's got the resume, he's got the accomplishments, he's got the type of performances to back him up. He's still the king. In the top 10 pound for pound, and to me, still the best fighter in the world, until proven otherwise. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.